pointed out that I could not be heard, and I was just talking into the air and to myself more than anything. I was talking about how really we have been fooled, we have been deceived, we have been, to believe that alcohol is harmless, and it is not harmless at all. In fact, it is incredibly dangerous, and it is a poison. Now, typically, legally, with regards to how words are used, the poison is thought of as something that has, in a small dose, can be lethal. Arsenic or rat poison or something like that. Okay. Here's the kicker with alcohol, and I've mentioned this before. Alcohol is ethanol, and ethanol is used industrially. It's combined with gasoline to improve combustion and the quality of the exhaust fumes. Now, some people, you might be familiar with the fact that alcohol is sort of measured in proof. And the proof is really the purity of the how much ethanol alcohol is in that particular drink, or the quality of that, the strength of it. In order for a person, the highest level of that of alcohol that can be produced, or actually it can't be produced, but what would be lethal would be 200 proof. It's not available commercially. But if a person were to consume, if they actually could consume, and there are people that may be able to consume, or they maybe would consume it without even thinking, it would take approximately 6 shots for the average person, 6 shots of 200 proof alcohol to kill them. Now, the highest that's available commercially is just under 100. So it's about 96%, I believe, Everclear, and there's a Polish vodka that come in that category. So what does that mean? Well, it means that roughly about the double, 12 shots would be enough to kill or nearly kill that person, or have their liver completely decimated. Microdosing a poison over the course of your lifetime does not do you any good. And we can see that. It makes people lethargic. It makes people slow. It makes people depressed. It makes people angry. Because really what happens when we consume alcohol over time is that the cognitive abilities that we have, our ability to logically think about things and say 1 + 1 = 2, those things disappear. Okay, those things disappear when we overconsume alcohol, and we are driven purely by emotion. Now, I was a very liberal consumer. Men would have this, and you can go back in time and see some Oliver Reed, or some other actors and stuff like that would just get outrageously drunk. Keith Moon and so many people. Of course, Jimi Hendrix died. Alcohol was a part of that. This is nothing that is good for us. Okay. Nope, because there will be copyright strike. Okay, I'm not sure exactly what that means, but maybe I do. But that's okay. The key is talking about ethanol, and the fact that alcohol is ethanol. It is the same thing that is used in gasoline. It is the same thing that is used to have antibacterial lotions and stuff. So, sure, we can survive a shot because a shot is not, a deadly amount. But you have to keep in mind that your body, okay, the minute that you drink alcohol, is already trying to get rid of it. And the reason is because it doesn't do your body any good. It is not compatible with our biochemistry in any way whatsoever. And to make the problem worse, if we have a sedentary lifestyle, if we don't move around a lot, then that's going to make it's not just the ethanol and alcohol, but when it enters the liver, it gets metabolized, and the byproduct of that metabolic process is called acetaldehyde. I could be pronouncing that incorrectly, but that acetaldehyde, that is the substance that basically is the cancerous substance. That is the type 1 carcinogen. That is the reason people will get breast cancer, they will get colorectal cancer, they will get liver cancer. There's 7 different cancers that are directly attributed or that are attached to alcohol. And the overconsumption, regular, habitual consumption, no good comes out of it. Again, I have to repeat this. I once weighed 250 pounds, and I will attribute that weight, and not entirely to alcohol, but hey there, Brad. But of course, eating bad food. And basically, they have us in a very bad place right now because we have been trained to consume. You can almost not go a day without itching to spend $1 here or there or anywhere. Hey, Brad, and I'm wearing my glasses this time. Very unusual for me. And what I was talking about earlier is what I've learned about this is, for example, when it comes to alcohol proof, if something in its highest form, and it could be 200 proof, but really that's just impossible. It's not available commercially. So you have to go below that, which is in the range between 95 and 100%. Okay. And if you, again, I'll repeat this, if you drink approximately 10 to 12 shots of that amount, it can kill you. Of course, it depends on your weight. It depends on your size and everything. But there is nothing good that comes out of this. We know that I'm going to share something that I kind of learned. I don't know if any of you have ever been blacked out drunk. I have. Okay. I've been blacked out drunk. And it's a weird situation, really, when you, you're 10, good deal. So good. I mean, don't ever touch alcohol, Brad, if you're 10. It's incredibly bad for you. Don't even think about it. Don't let people talk you into it or anything like that. It's just, it's bad. And it's not limited to this country, but in this country, it's really bad. In fact, now people will resist this. Well, one, because they're used to the good times, they're used to the celebrations, but you can celebrate things without being alcohol. Okay. I'm glad to hear that. That is wonderful. I wish that would have been a case. No, I'm not Australian. I'm actually, I live in the United States, but I'm not anything really. I don't belong to a country. I belong to the universe. I really do. And none of us really belong to a country. That is an imprisonment of sorts. We are slaves to our countries and to our cultures and to our tribes. Not everybody is, I don't, this is where I'm from. I actually don't know where I'm from. I don't, in the sense that, we all come from the same place, but we really don't know what that is. Human is a term that we gave ourselves. We don't really know what we are. We don't really know why we're here, but we're just the same as the cats and the dogs or anything like that. Okay. We're not much different. That's okay, Brad. You can, you go on with your day and have a wonderful time. Just be safe. I just have, I look at myself, I'm kind of getting off track here. So this blackout situation, this is kind of something that I've learned, that when we are speaking and we're talking with somebody, we're not really thinking. most of the times, or there might it's a different form of thinking. Really, what we're doing more is emoting, and we're relying on the symbols that we have been taught. To sort of get our points across as best as possible. But I think that what most people will feel when they engage in a conversation with another person is the energy, okay, that they have. Whether it's a positive energy or a negative energy, or whether they're being controlling or authoritarian, or whether they're being supportive, or they're, trying to offer some assistance in one form or fashion. But, we don't really listen to the words as much as we listen to the meaning or the symbols or the intent behind the words. So anyway, one of the things that happens, like what's happening right now, is that there is a lot of information that's coming in from all places, okay? And my mind is capturing, and every moment that goes by is like a piece of a film. Okay, and so of course in a movie you have the film, and then you run it through, and then you start to see the entire movement of everything. That's kind of really what's happening with our brain. Okay, we're processing all this information and we're attaching it because it's ongoing. And some of the things we see, and there are some things that we don't see, but the things that we don't see are not. They are not there. They are there. We just don't see them, but they do have an effect on where we are, and the things that we say, and all that. So anyway, when we are drunk, blackout drunk, okay, the rational processing that helps us sort of study those images that we see in our mind and our environment while we're talking, that ability gets shut down. We are not able to process those things anymore, and it gets shut down. So the only thing that we're relying on is sheer sort of will and emotion. It's the emotion that's driving the behavior. And I've seen this so many times with people that are drunk. I had a cousin one time that was walking out of his send-off, as far as, he was going to get married. And he was drunk, and he wanted to drive, and I had to wrestle the key away from him. He didn't remember anything of what happened because he had an emotional conviction, and that emotional conviction was that he could drive and he would be okay to drive. And he didn't remember anything from that because, again, it was all based on emotions. There's nothing that's cute about a beer belly. Nothing. Okay, it is an abnormal. We are. I'm not even sure how to say this. We are told to accept ourselves as we are, when really, the way I see it is that I should never know who I am. I should always be looking forward and going, and trying to discover new things, because the moment that I know who I am is the moment that I've kind of died. Because it's basically when I pitch tent, is when I stop living. It is only when I'm moving, when I'm going around, when I'm talking with people, when I'm engaging with people, when I'm learning new things, that I feel that I'm actually living. But being in a pattern where I'm repeating the same thing over and over and over and over again, that is death in and of itself. That is what kills us. Okay, I was born in 1959, and so that puts me at 67 years of age. I have somewhat reversed the clock. I mean, people look at me and think I'm old, and that's fine, but I don't, time is they say it's relative. Another way of looking at it is time is arbitrary. And we know that's true because a minute can last an eternity, or it can go by in seconds. It is all the way we take in the experience. It's a time, the calendar was created, the times, the minutes, the fact that there are 60 minutes in an hour, all that is a creation. It is not and we created it. Why did we create it? I mean, the Aztecs had a calendar. All kinds of civilizations had a calendar. All these calendars are what? To control movement, to control behavior, to control activities. That is what the calendar does. And so it seems like almost everything that we create is something that controls us at some point or another. Cars control us. The time controls us. And when I say control it, these things manipulate our emotions. Okay. And our emotions are our fuel. Is really what our emotions are. The emotions are the fuel that moves us. And if our emotion is a bad or a negative emotion, then it's, we're not going to move contrary to if it's a positive emotion. If we have a positive emotion, we're going to go out there, we're going to do things. The angrier we are, the more we get we fall back into our system, and the only people that we relate to are the ones that share in our anger, in the same way with happiness. But, well, I'm kind of getting off track here because I'm really just trying to impress upon anybody that listens to this that there is no good that comes from alcohol and alcohol consumption in any way whatsoever. And it's not necessary to be happy. I'm having the time of my life. I'm actually having the best time of my life since I stopped drinking alcohol in 2019. The last drop was on my 60th birthday. And it was my birthday. And I felt obligated to have a drink. And I had a bottle of wine in front of me. I didn't drink it all. I had a glass. I served myself the glass of wine and I couldn't finish it. It's like I had enough. Something woke up in me that said, I don't need any more, but that wasn't really, that was just like even getting to the starting line. That was the starting line, because from that point on, what I had to do, because I had 42 years of alcohol consumption, is that I had to sweat. I had to work the negative wiring that had taken place over time in my head. I had to get that out of my system. And I will say point blank that running, well, it started with walking, because at 250 pounds, I could not run. And even on the first day that I tried walking, I could barely walk half a block, and it was in the middle of the summer or something like that when I decided to do it. And I looked at my feet and, I said, I can't go back, but I decided to keep pushing. And every day I would go out, and of course there were people that would look at me, and sometimes they would comment, or they kind of try to mock me or whatever, because I would walk with, and move my arms a lot and stuff like that, because it wasn't like walking in a park and, and just whistling and just hoping, the fat would just wear away. It was making effort. It was trying every day. If I walked for 15 minutes, the next day I would try 20 minutes. I don't remember the exact, methodology that I used or anything like that, except for the fact that I always kept pushing. And when I started pushing and I started doing these things, okay, there were a lot of things happening to my body. And this is kind of funny in a way. One of the things that happened was that I would fart. I would fart while I was walking, and I would joke about that. And I say it was sort of like jet propulsion that was moving me along. Okay. I had to take it in strides, and I had just had, and then when I would go to the bathroom, the scary things were, the things that were coming out of me were like, whoa, that much, whoa. And the ease with which things would evacuate out of my body, because I had all this stored fat and crud and garbage in my body, things that I accumulated from just, from drinking and eating garbage and, fast food and processed foods and all this other stuff, things that made me feel good, but things that make you feel good aren't necessarily good for you, and that's the things that they market things so that they taste good. They market things, or they manufacture them so that we get past the fact that these things are bad for you. And of course, they enslave us with our time. Nobody I mean, if there are billionaires, nobody should have to work 8 hours a day in order to live a life of dignity, but they've convinced us that to have all these artificial needs. And now, so for example, I see people that are my age that look much worse than I do, standing for 8 hours in a Walmart, okay, that are overweight. And because they have a level of comfort that they've accustomed themselves to, and that they need to protect, and they need to sleep in their cozy little bed, and they need to watch their their TV and whatever, and and watch their sports and do whatever it is that they do. I find it, what I think sort of obscene is when I see, going back and forth on different subjects here, but I find it somewhat obscene that, I see these Budweiser trucks that say, we honor our veterans. Okay, well, the truth of the matter is that alcohol and Budweiser, really are responsible for more veteran deaths than, I don't know, what it's. I mean, on average, there are more unaliving that takes place amongst the veteran population. And I would say, and I haven't looked at the statistics here, but I would say that goes also with police force, where I had a friend of mine, or that I met through an unalive counseling or a group, a support network, because my brother unalived himself when he was 25 years old, and I was about 3 months shy of turning 32. And that was one of the most devastating things that ever happened to me, because I was the big brother, and I shouldered that responsibility, and I felt that it was my fault. And there was a time when I thought that actually, I thought he was a much better person than I was, and that it should have been me and not him. And I kind of lived with that for a long, long time. And it actually made me make decisions in my life that turned out to be very bad decisions, because they were decisions that were made out of trauma. They were not made out of, rational thought and trying to process things in the way they should have been. Now, what he did, it was not out of depression or anything. Actually, he was a smart guy. He left high school. He got his GED. He had gone on adventures with like anthropologists. He lived in the Peruvian jungle for a while. He had like a small harem of and this is back in the 80s, a small harem of little jungle girls in the Peruvian jungle that were, just kind of catering to him. He did all kinds of interesting things, and he would read all kinds of interesting materials. And really, it was a matter of disgust. He could see the human condition for what it was, and just basically said to himself, I'm out of here. I can't deal with this shit. Anyway, I am getting off track here a little bit, but that's okay, because I did come into this with not a specific script or anything in mind, as far as that goes. I just came into this to again try to reiterate the message that needs to be shared with everybody, and that is that consuming alcohol is not good. It's not funny. It's not cute. It's not fun. I mean, it may be temporarily, but it will catch up with you, and we can see it all the time. And we rely on something. We've been taught to rely on this, and we shouldn't. Again, alcohol is ethanol. Alcohol is ethanol. Alcohol is ethanol. Not 96% proof. All you would need would be about 12 shots. Now, it's possible that you wouldn't even be able to drink all 12 shots, but that's the amount that would be lethal. That's the amount that would kill you. Okay. I just want to get this word out. I just want to get this word out that there's nothing harmless about it. And it's, I still see people that say it's not medicine. It's not internal medicine. In fact, I've said this before, the International Agency for Research on Cancer is basically classified it as a type 1 carcinogen. That was back in 1988. 1988. And just last year, it came out with an additional statement that said that there is no amount of alcohol that is consumed that comes without risk. No amount of alcohol that is consumed without risk. None. Zero. There is always risk when you consume alcohol. Okay, it's just simply not good. Again, it's the why we insist, is a whole different matter in and of itself. But it is something that we can visibly see, and it is responsible. It is responsible for what is 40% of the U.S. population right now is obese, and the other 30% or so, 35% are overweight. I was once in that category. Okay, I was once in that category. I am no longer in that category. I weigh approximately 135 pounds, 140 pounds, and I'm living probably the best life that I could be living at any time. I am. There's not a doubt about it in my mind. I'm meeting new people, making new friends. I have wonderful, engaging conversations when I'm speaking with people. I feel like there's a lot that I can do. There's a lot that I actually do accomplish, more than a lot of people my age manage to accomplish. For example, and something that I've kind of recorded and documented, I went to the CBGB Festival in New York. I didn't buy a ticket. Okay, I flew out to New York. I hadn't been there in, I can't remember how many years, maybe it hadn't been 15 years or something like that. I went straight to Manhattan, flew into JFK, got on the train, got into, just went in there and started walking around and seeing things and going, to the places that I had hung out in the 80s, in the East Village and the Lower East Side, in the West Village and all that area in between. And the place that I had worked, or that's no longer there, the NoHo Star, I went there, and, it was an incredible experience. And I managed to get in for free by a fluke. These ladies saw me and they asked me if they had an extra ticket, and they asked me if I wanted to do it. Absolutely. And boom, I was in. I probably, I got in maybe 45 minutes or an hour after most of the people had already been there. And that's, I saw Murphy's Law. I saw the Cro-Mags, only snippets of that. But Linda's were for me one of the highlights of the show. Iggy Pop, of course, I had never seen him, and that was a tremendous. That was awesome, and it was actually drizzling rain a little bit when he came out. I met new people. I made new friends. Eric and Amy, a couple folks that own the Tiki Tide Kava bar down in Dania Beach, in Dania Beach, and I've gone and visited them and, had a great time. A lot of good things came out of that trip. And it's all due to the fact that I'm not drinking alcohol anymore, and I haven't had it. And I go to bars. I think the thing that's kind of sad that I've heard is that the gentleman, and I can't remember his name, the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, begged for a shot of whiskey on his deathbed. And I would never do that. And so to me, what that tells me is that he never stopped. He never basically purged that desire out of his system. See, even though I quit in 2019, it wasn't until last year that I realized how dangerous alcohol was. And the moment that I realized that is actually when I was running, because that's what I do now. I run not all the time. I run every day. It's sort of my yoga, my practice, the way I center myself, I align myself is by running. The ability to run outdoors over a sustained period of time for 6.25 miles. I mean, that is something that really fuels me. It actually creates energy. I create my own energy. I don't need an energy drink. I don't need caffeine because it's the level of activity that I engage in. It's sort of we have to think about these things from a rational perspective. Okay, from a rational perspective, think about this. What can be wrong? What can be wrong if a person regularly moves their body for 6.25 miles, relying on only their 2 feet? Okay, there's nothing wrong with it. It is really probably the most integrated exercise or holistic exercise that I can engage in. Not just in place and moving my arms or anything like that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. If that's what you can do, that's what you can do, and that's good too. Movement is very good, but real movement, as far as moving across, moving, walking, moving, that is what's going to help out, to help you. It's going to decrease your reliance on medicine. It's going to decrease your reliance on a lot of different things. So anyway, I'm going to stop because I know I'm going to be interrupted soon, and that's okay. I just kind of wanted to rant a little bit, but the key takeaway here is this, that alcohol, while legally or officially, let's say, while officially it is not a poison because it's not like arsenic where you can consume it and it will kill you practically on the spot. It is a toxic substance that that is incompatible with your biochemistry, and that your body basically tries to purge immediately from the time that you consume it. Okay, so and to habitually consume it and to live a sedentary lifestyle is not going to help you in any way whatsoever. It is microdosing poison, just like they want you to microdose, things that psychedelics or what have you to improve your life. Okay, well, microdosing poison like alcohol doesn't, and you can see it. I don't know how many chronic diseases, and I could look this up, and I will look this up, are a result of habitual alcohol consumption, but I would say that's probably in the neighborhood of over 130. And I'll come back and I'll say something like that again. Okay, so anyway, to Brad in particular, who joined us for a second, have a safe and wonderful day, a productive day. Don't let anybody sidetrack you with nonsense or BS or anything like that. Alcohol, ethanol is not good for you. You should never, ever consume it. There are far better options and just living life and not using an artificial. That's what I was going to say. That's the one thing I will say. My mind is racing a little bit this morning. But the gentleman from Alcoholics Anonymous, what happened? I kind of did say that they basically, Alcoholics Anonymous replaces one crutch for another. So, there's a person doesn't really purge their desire for alcohol, because a lot of alcoholics will tell you, or people who are part of AA, that, they can't go into a bar, or they don't want to think about alcohol because it makes them want to drink it. Well, that means that that does mean that they have not purged that desire to drink. And it does take some time to do that. So anyway, I'm going to sign off now. Have a fun, wonderful time, and we'll see what I do next. I'm not sure, but I'll try to be more organized. That's what I promise. Okay, just stay away from alcohol. Stay away from cigarettes too. That's what killed my father. He was 65, 66 years old. He probably started smoking when he was 12 or 13 to keep up with his kids. Again, I know I have a friend that almost had a heart attack, and it was smoking that caused it. Why we continue to, these things are not good for you, basically.